rangolis and flowers, all from the little store. I'm all set to welcome Lakshmi Ma and all my guests. I've ordered some delicious fresh mithai in decorated boxes and bags and got some frozen vegetarian products, spices, all my groceries and hygienic paper sohari leaves for a delectable Diwali feast. Go to the little store in Curep. They've got additional parking and they're open on Sundays. Check them on Facebook or call 663-4415.
Diwali Passport, brought to you by Chatak Food Products and The Little Store Limited.
In Hinduism, cow's milk is revered, and from the finest milk comes our ghee. When offered into the sacred fire, cow ghee carries our prayers to the deities, unlike processed vegetable ghee. From your devotion to your delicious dishes, you can trust Anchor Cow Brand Ghee. For all occasions, use the best ghee. Enjoy the best food and delicacies, and have the best Diwali with Anchor Cow Brand Ghee. The season of lights is bright and tasty with Royal Castle's delightful veggie burger made with a healthy and nutritious patty. It's great on its own or in a combo with one side and a 16-ounce drink. So whether it's lunch, dinner or a snack, Royal Castle's veggie burger fits right in with your fasting and festivities. Happy Diwali from Royal Castle.
Very first day they opened, my mother and my father and I came in here. I love to see it. It's neat, really, really neat.
You know, we have many sections in Price Club. The food court section is a variety here.
Any one of them you ask, they are very helpful. I love it.
We get low price, specials and everything every day.
Prices are very, very good. It's cheaper than everywhere I've been.
Lighting up for Diwali just got simple with the easy-to-use Anand brand wax diyas. They're scientifically engineered to last longer, burn brighter, and keep on lighting. Anand brand wax diyas do not require any prepping or filling and has less spillage and cleanup. These diyas are recommended for outdoor use and can withstand light wind and rain. Plus, they're eco-friendly. Redeem your use cases for cash back. So put some green innovation into your Diwali celebrations with Anand brand wax diyas.
It's Diwali time again. Come to Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan for all your Diwali essentials. Get your clay diyas, cotton wicks, floating wicks, beautifully decorated imported diyas. And now in stock, our long-lasting, easy-lighting wax diyas. Fasting? We have frozen vegetarian meals, exciting Indian spices and grocery items, decorated mithai boxes, prasad bags, freshly ground elaichi powder, and a paper sohari leaves. And don't forget our popular, tasty, mouth-watering mithai. We have simple Diwali puja guides on CD with a puja handout, and our helpful staff will assist you with all the required ingredients to perform your Diwali puja. Get great deals on lantern decorations, electric diya string lights, and happy Diwali decorations. Visit us at the corner of Watt Street, Curep, or at St. Ives Street, Chaguanas, opposite the Charleville taxi stand, or call 663-6084. Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan. It's a family tradition serving the nation and Dharma. Lakshmi Mata's divine blessings to all. For your convenience, both branches are open on Sundays until Diwali.
WESN.
Well, it's interesting to see how the information is being digested. and here to help with some of it. Perhaps we may disagree on some of the interpretations, but we'll continue the conversation. Sure, Michael Smollett, this is Talking Point. Before we get into the nitty-gritties of some, because it's always a lot to chew on with regards to an entire annual budget statement. And of course, whether you like it or not, the ministers of finance, at least for as long as the show has been on the air, tend to have a lot of subjective statements. That's one thing that perhaps I didn't necessarily state on our post-panel show, that I found that, at least for me, I'm not an economist, nor have I ever worked for the government. There was too much gray area, and there was too much politicking. Maybe you could say there wasn't as much or a lot of politics in the budget as before. I would disagree. I think it was more or less par for the course. But the politicking, in a sense, if there's some sort of distinction, if you could draw that. The campaigning almost, and I guess it was for the budget this time, not necessarily to put down the other side. You get a little bit of that every time. And of course, as I believe it may have been pointed out on budget night, it is only fair for the incoming government in their maiden budget to say, hey, well, this is what we inherited, these are the problems. And for the most part, can't disagree. Can't disagree, because those are some of the things we complained about before the election. But the politicking to sell the budgets may just come back to bite them in the you-know-where. Because at the end of the day, it actually kind of boils down to the simple question, and we don't necessarily have a clear answer, and it's very complicated. So how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it, quote unquote? But as I said, before we get into all of the budget talk, the good lady herself will be joining me later. She'll have some of the things that she wants to start the conversation with, and as time goes on and as the debate goes on, we'll get more specific information on each ministry from their line minister, etc., etc. But to kick off the show this morning, I do want to just mention or acknowledge what happened, and I believe the latest American attack on a small boat in, I believe, Venezuelan waters or Caribbean waters. And this could have been relatively close to us. I don't necessarily want to assume. Regardless, I do find it interesting because now any sort of analysis into the situation must not necessarily get an answer to this question, but must consider the facts. Because our own local fishermen did voice concerns for their own safety just going off of our waters, right? Now, this is a situation where the Americans claim to be tracking the point of origins of where these boats are setting off from and imply they have intelligence with regards to that location, the cargo in said boats, the individuals manning said boats, which is why, just very surface analysis, I wasn't thinking that our fishermen were in the line of fire just yet. But if I was a Venezuelan, especially depending on where I was setting off from, I may wonder. We haven't heard of a strike on a boat that left Trinidad, but we've been hearing strikes on our boats that leave Venezuela. So now, after the United States has proven to be more than willing to do an act that has just about everybody uncomfortable, to say the least, because of the questions of the legality of it. But notice that the criticisms only go up to a point. Just want to point that out. What I do find interesting is where the first strike, still, there are very, very relevant questions on how sure are you that it was all drug smugglers? How sure are you that it was all criminals on that boat. Now, multiple strikes later, I do have to wonder how many innocent people are either ignorant enough to take the risk or will willingly take the risk to potentially put themselves in a situation where they might get shot at. So that's the thing. I'm not saying that they wouldn't have any innocents on the boat in this latest strike. I'm saying that you now have to wonder or try to find an answer to the question, which we won't necessarily have, or consider the possibility that there's, to some extent, less of a possibility that boats now being shot at are for some other reason other than smuggling of illegal substances. That doesn't mean that the possibility is zero. Can't say that the possibility is zero. So it's, in a sense, two things that I'm putting out there to kind of warn people, don't underestimate and dismiss. Don't dismiss the fact that as more boats are launched from Venezuela in a certain pattern, in a certain way, and get shot at, it is potentially only brazen criminals that are thinking they'll get away with it, or people compelled to do it. That might be the part in the middle. But also, again, it's not as though that this theory means there's no potential of innocent loss of life. Someone caught wrong place, wrong time where they're not supposed to be. And then I just touched on something. What if some of these smugglers are not necessarily hardened criminals, but people who are blackmailed? Yeah, well, we need a boat to go out. You have gambling debts. You owe us for drugs. Something. We hold your family and we trot you out there. Not saying that that is guaranteed to be the case either, but it's just to highlight how complex the situation is. Regardless, it is interesting that as much as this is a zone of peace, two things. One, what steps has been done by the other parties to enforce this zone of peace? They say they want to maintain it. That's nice. Because the flip side is this. What if the Caribbean did not want to maintain the zone of peace? For whatever reason. And let's just assume for a justifiable one. For a justifiable reason, the Caribbean as a whole entity decided we need to go and not be peaceful. How do we do that? Because if we can't do it the other way, then really and truly, what do we mean when we say we enforce, we support, we stand by? We can't actually do anything with regards to a zone of peace. It is not a zone of peace because we choose to do it. It is a zone of peace because of the actions or the lack of actions by others. That is the unfortunate reality of where we find ourselves. Strongly worded letters and public complaints, words of distress and anger, that doesn't mean anything practical. We have a zone of peace because others either allow it or support us and enforce it for us. I don't know if we'll ever be able to move away from that as much as we want to strive for independence. A couple other things. One thing I find very interesting, Christopher Hughes, that is to say Christmas List, the one YouTuber who was singled out and arrested and now has apparently a matter before the court. A matter that, I just want to get there, Mr. Hughes, I believe on his latest YouTube video, claimed the judge described the matter as a disgraceful mess. Now, unless there are some pertinent facts that the public is not aware of, I have a hard time disagreeing with that assessment. This is because now, apparently, they want Mr. Hughes to plead guilty of sedition. This is how he put it. The only offer I got is that if I plead guilty to something I am not guilty of, they will drop all charges. I will have no criminal record, but all I have to do is plead guilty. Now, there's a part of me that suspects how he said it is probably not the way it is, because it kind of doesn't make sense. But this is Trinidad and Tobago, and there's always a small chance that something that doesn't make sense is the actual reality of the situation. I also find it interesting that he's having to do this trial apparently virtually because he's banned from coming back. Now, at some point, if this situation gets too ridiculous, there is always a chance that he will fire the case and his government may not actually agree with helping us potentially extradite him here if we want to continue the matter. Because it's not like if we're telling him he has to come in to do it. Apparently, the offer is he has to plead guilty for sedition, and basically he won't be arrested, he won't have to do any time, and the matter will be put to rest. My issue is, because the claim is he uses influence to topple and overthrow the former government. I mean, the man went to the crime areas and spoke to people on the ground. I don't know what else you want to say. Other YouTubers did it. Why is it only him? That's point number one. Point number two, so at what point are we going to arrest just about everybody that has criticisms on the government of the day? Especially given the fact that we had a crime problem. Where does it end? Why is what Mr. Hughes did such a big deal? Because I thought it was, oh, he's making us look bad. And again, there were other YouTubers that did the same thing he did, so it's not just him alone. It's not just him alone. But there are other people who have negative commentary on Trinidad and Tobago and the government of the day. Where will it end? Why is it that for one YouTuber, it's sedition? What about the rest of everything that is said? Are we going to go on Facebook to PNM and UNC videos, whether live streamed or pre-recorded, and go through the comment sections? Because those things, to some extent, are internationally monitored. Are we going to go through the comment sections now and start to pick out people to say, oh, sedition? Have you seen the depravity of some of those comment sections? They go much further than Mr. Hughes. What about all the videos about the Paria incident? Are we going to go to those foreign jurisdictions and attempt to what? Sue? They're making us look bad. I mean, there are multiple YouTube videos about the Paria incident and how bad it was. But it's not like if they don't have people reporting about industrial accidents, airline accidents, and the like in their own country. Why are we any special? People comment about crime in their country. Why is our country any special? And the fact that what bothers me is, it's almost as though whoever thought this was a good idea is doubling down on the scapegoating, which is ironically having the inverse effect politically, which technically should never have been a consideration in the first place, of what the political agenda was. Because now he has the currency to make another video to say, look at the stupidness these people are doing. And unless there is pertinent information that, again, the public is not aware of, I don't really have any sort of pushback defense that I could give. So what am I supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? All for what? What is this case trying to prove? That we don't want YouTubers? Because apparently, Mr. Hughes was spoken to about helping to promote tourism on the island. But if this is how we're going to treat YouTubers, whose main task, yes, there are some YouTubers who will sell out, but the real heavyweights, to some extent, have a reputation for integrity. and they're not going to necessarily cover up things. There are a couple of travel YouTubers I know, they don't even cover up things for their own country. They're going to cover up things for us if they come here, just because we don't like it? Yeah, right. Naivete. This is the 21st century, 2025. Why is it that we're operating as though this is 1856? Now, one other thing to bring up. I'm just going to throw this out there. There's a report that says, and maybe this is a mistaken report by the media house, but something tells me, I don't know that they would put this out there just so. This is the first line. Police Commissioner Alistair Guevara has directed the Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau to launch a criminal probe into the sale of key CL financial assets as concerns mount over the handling of the company's liquidation. The issue I have with that sentence comes at the very beginning. The Commissioner of Police directed the Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau, which reportedly is now no longer in the office of the TTPS, but under the Attorney General's office. So I don't know. I'm not that smart. I'm not as smart as some of these guys, so maybe they could explain to me how is it that you move a bureau from the TTPS to the AG's office, and yet the police commissioner somehow still has the capacity to instruct that office, because as far as we're aware, there was some concern. That's why you moved it, or was it just a willy-nilly concern? Or was it a movement in name only? Please make this make sense. If you're going to have small issues like this that seem senseless, it's very hard for a long-term sustained confidence in your decision-making on big issues. And I'll leave that right there. Remember, this is a whole big thing in the news about it being moved. So was it not moved? Maybe the media house got it wrong, but media houses tend to be very matter-of-fact in reporting the facts and won't just wing it. Now, this goes to one of the things that I'm very disappointed in is the report, but not just the report. Here's the thing, and I might not get into all of the examples. I don't have issues with the budget. I have issues with the commentary to justify some of the decisions as being either unprofessional, naive, unintelligent, foolish, or if it's not those things, then it goes into more nefarious categories. So there's a report, it's been revealed, the allocations for all P&M corporations apparently are down and UNC corporations are up. Now optically, and I'm not someone who's going to say you need to always act with good optics, because I don't like that as a primary motivator. But you can't get away from it. What do you think would happen if you decided to reduce all P&M allocations and increase all UNC allocations for regional corporations? It's not going to look good. It's not going to look like everybody's winning. In fact, I do believe that the minister even had a remark about how even ARIMA is winning when he had the budget. The implication was even the P&M is winning. Even a P&M area is winning. Doesn't feel like that with this report. Now maybe if you, instead of revealing, letting something like this just get revealed to us with no context, that's not leadership, that's foolishness. Maybe you could have put something in the budget statement about this to explain this, not necessarily in full detail like the local government minister handled that, but at least prepare us for it. Meanwhile, what is most disappointing is a source from the UNC said, and if you just want to go with the emotions of the statement, you might not understand where I'm coming from. I need you to go 2 steps deeper. See how it feels? We were out in the wilderness for 2 decades. For 2 decades? I think that was a mistake. Maybe he meant 2 terms, because the 5 years before was the partnership. So it was 1 decade. So I am just going to assume that he meant 2 terms, 1 decade, right? Before anybody wants to jump on that little thing and make that an issue. I hope that he could do math properly. See how it feels? We were out in the wilderness with P&M giving us little and nothing. We make do. P&M should get up and work. Try that now. Now, the first part of that second half is correct. P&M weren't giving them the full allocation. So times was hard. The problem is, why do you assume P&M corporations got everything they wanted? Now, I don't know to what extent they got their full allocations or not. All I know is, one P&M mayor of Port of Spain tried to do a project to improve Port of Spain. To fund that project, he didn't have the money to do it from the allocation from the government. So he tried to go into a public-private partnership. And subsequently, he basically got complained to oblivion and had to scrap the whole thing. The implication of that is, it's not as though the P&M corporations were swimming in cash. That's point number 1. But again, 2 steps deeper. Everybody wins does not mean it's we time now and you have to learn your lesson. Again, maybe there's an explanation to say, well, the allocations are more fair now. But you see, I shouldn't have to try to read the tea leaves and figure that out with limited information. You should be upfront about it. You should be willing to, if necessary, to take the licks that you'll get from those who just will never want to believe you. But do your best to try to be upfront with your justification so the people in the middle will not, if you try to come after the fact with your justifications, think it's just merely an excuse, a smokescreen. What this source from the UNC is saying is in direct contradiction to the entire concept of everybody's winning. It goes back to, oh, we had to feel it, you feel it now. And yes, if we are all little children in a schoolyard, he lashed me first. I lash him back. That makes sense, right? Even though technically I think the teachers aren't supposed to allow that. But if we were all school children, primary school children, it will all seem fair to us. If that's how citizens of this country want the government to run this country, what am I doing here? Why do we even bother? Let's just take the veneer off of good governance and morality, ethics, good judgment. Let's just take all of that out. And let's just admit we are running a country off of party politics. That's what this statement implies. It's not about we. It's about this side versus that side, whichever side it is. It's never about we. When this is the sentiment, it's never going to be about we. Because as Morgan Freeman basically said this about racism, as long as you continue to draw distinctions, it will never be we, because we will always be separated. We will always be described as different. We will always look to keep score. And while, yes, there will be times when practically you will have to do so, why does it feel as though that is not just the default, but it is the desired default, the preferred default, to always keep score? And of course, if my side keeps score, it's just. Notice I'm not saying which side. It could be the PNM, it could be the UNC, it could be the NTA, it could be the PEP, it could be the TPP. Whoever it is, if my side keeps score, it's because we need to be fair. But if their side keeps score, it's not about fairness. That's just evil. They're wicked. They're punishing us. Maybe you disagree with that sentiment. I'm not sure. But, all right. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. Stay tuned.
The season of lights is bright and tasty with Royal Castle's delightful veggie burger made with a healthy and nutritious patty. It's great on its own or in a combo with one side and a 16-ounce drink. So whether it's lunch, dinner or a snack, Royal Castle's veggie burger fits right in with your fasting and festivities. Happy Diwali from Royal Castle.
My mom has been shopping here for the last 15 years. So coming here with her, now I have my own family.
The variety of items, cleanliness of the place, the spaciousness.
My favorite section is household.
My husband loves the hardware section and the auto section. My favorite would be stationery.
Price Club is the low price leading supermarket in TNT.
They are the best. I would recommend Price Club to anybody.
Diwali time again. Come to Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan for all your Diwali essentials. Get your clay diyas, cotton wicks, floating wicks, beautifully decorated imported diyas. And now in stock, our long-lasting, easy-lighting wax diyas. Fasting? We have frozen vegetarian meals, exciting Indian spices and grocery items, decorated mithai boxes, prasad bags, freshly ground elaichi powder, and paper sohari leaves. And don't forget our popular, tasty, mouth-watering mithai. We have simple Diwali Puja guides on CD with a Puja handout, and our helpful staff will assist you with all the required ingredients to perform your Diwali Puja. Get great deals on lantern decorations, electric diya string lights, and Happy Diwali decorations. Visit us at the corner of Watt Street, Kirep, or at St. Ives Street, Chaguanas, opposite the Charleville taxi stand, or call 663-6084. Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan. It's a family tradition serving the nation and Dharma. Lakshmi Mata's divine blessings to all. For your convenience, both branches are open on Sundays until Diwali.
In Hinduism, cow's milk is revered, and from the finest milk comes our ghee. When offered into the sacred fire, cow ghee carries our prayers to the deities, unlike processed vegetable ghee. From your devotion to your delicious dishes, you can trust Anchor Cow Brand Ghee. For all occasions, use the best ghee. Enjoy the best food and delicacies, and have the best Diwali with Anchor Cow Brand Ghee.
Lighting up for Diwali just got simple with the easy-to-use Anand brand wax diyas. They're scientifically engineered to last longer, burn brighter, and keep on lighting. Anand brand wax diyas do not require any prepping or filling and has less spillage and cleanup. These diyas are recommended for outdoor use and can withstand light wind and rain. Plus, they're eco-friendly. Redeem your use cases for cash back. So put some green innovation into your Diwali celebrations with Anand brand wax diyas.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
My name is Dr. Joanne Williams-Carroll, and I am the Director of Behavioral and Mental Health at the Community Hospital. At the Community Hospital, we believe in nurturing mind, body, and soul. Through our counseling and chaplaincy program, we will provide you with support and strength you need to help with your mental and emotional well-being. Give us a call.
The Community Hospital. of Seventh-day Adventist.
Where good private health care is affordable.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
I'm back here talking about WESN, and as the budget statement is being unpacked, one of the interesting things is, for some of the more eye-raising measures especially, but probably for a lot of the things that the minister said across the board, we are left with a lot of questions. Now, at the end of the day, even I felt some optimism after the budget statement, but the questions remain, and unfortunately, that kind of hangs over the head. It's difficult to be optimistic, but then you're uncertain. That doesn't necessarily work. That foundation is not necessarily strong. Now, as I said, as the debate reveals more and more information, we'll be able to speak more accurately about various things. But right now, we have to go with what they give us. And if they think that our opinions are premature, I would argue you had 4.5 hours to set this thing up and be upfront about certain things and not having to come and try to justify them after we point out, hey, this might be an issue. What do you mean by this? So to continue the conversation, the good lady herself is here. Someone who has done this herself, so she may know a thing or two about it. Karen, let's share.
Yes, thank you very much, Sean, and good morning to everyone, as usual. So I've had more of an opportunity to digest the budget over yesterday and later on Monday. So that what I would say is my first statement out of the gate, so to speak, is that I thought it was really inappropriate, and that's putting it mildly, for the Minister of Finance in Parliament, addressing the national community in Parliament, to repeatedly make that refrain, which was a political party campaign statement, when we win, everybody wins. Even if you said it once, which was bad, because that really should be confined to a political platform, because you're bringing party politics into the chamber in a way that it was not necessary, especially as the Minister of Finance, making your first budget presentation. But you repeated it ad nauseum, Minister, repeated it ad nauseum. You went so far as to say the children win, the old people win, or prejudice win. Even talk about animals winning.
Arima win.
I mean, this was so, it was beyond. It took it too far. This is not a platform speech. You are not out there making a platform speech. You are speaking on behalf of the national community on something as important to our national development and economy. So I suspect, though, and we spoke about it, right, Sean, that I said to him, you know, I don't think the Prime Minister, because many times in my case, they don't really see your last budget thing. They know what you're supposed to put in. You have the guidance from the Ministry of Finance and so on. They're very experienced in preparing budgets and so on. It forms and takes a particular format anyhow. So I don't believe that the Prime Minister saw the everybody win that chant over and over and over again. And the reason we said that is because...
Yes, because before the budget, and I made notes of this, I think maybe the Monday morning itself, right? This was one of the stories. Prime Minister Kamala Sabisesa is acknowledging that they cannot give everybody everything, which that's pretty reasonable to me. And I brought it up because I wanted to ensure people understood. First of all, to acknowledge that the Prime Minister herself, I think, was trying to be upfront and setting up more realistic expectations for the people, right? And I thought that was what the whole exercise was. Yes, they campaigned on that, right? And I'm not saying it was wrong for them to campaign on that, but the longer they try to keep up that slogan, right, in the face of reality, it all of a sudden now, can you actually come through with a promise like that? And I started to wonder if the Prime Minister was trying to be more realistic and try to manage people's expectations more realistically. And then the minister comes now and he puts the slogan into the whole budget over and over and over again. And it makes me wonder, was there a disconnect there? Because we literally had a very short period of time where the Prime Minister's narrative, okay, let's kind of be a little bit more practical, and then we just go straight back into campaign mode as though this is election 2026 now. You just won. You don't need... I said this morning, I started to think, he was selling the budget politically.
For sure. That was the other thing.
As opposed to saying, we have a good budget, it will stand on its own.
Absolutely. And that was the mistake. I mean, quite apart from the fact that you don't bring a party slogan into the thing. I mean, that's not the thing to do. And to do it as often as you did, it made me see he doth protest too much. Now, listen, I'm not holding any brief for anybody, you know. I'm not holding a brief for anybody. I'm holding a brief for Trinidad and Tobago. So if you take offense to what I'm saying, it is not intended to offend. It's intended to give a perspective that many people may or may not share, but will not articulate it for good reasons, and we know the reasons may be what they may be. So I don't want anybody to take it as a personal affront to anyone, but he just was not right. And then chanting it at the end, oh my gosh, I mean, it was tedious repetition, and not only that, you're trying almost to convince yourself and convince us that that's what the budget was. And when you say it so many times, you know what you're doing? It's having the opposite effect, because what people are now going to do is going to now dissect that budget to see whether that refrain really is reflected in your budgetary fiscal measures. Thank you, God. Fiscal measures and all that you say, and then you put yourself in a position where people have to start to wonder, did you really mean what you said?
Well, and this is the thing, I think it might go even a step beyond that. Whereas if you were more practical in your statements, people will judge you practically. But because you're over-promising, now people will nitpick you to the point where it might even be unfair, but it's because you set that up to some extent. You made it seem like, hey, we have the world for you. So now when you don't have the world to give them, they will start to call you out maybe aggressively for it.
It's not only that you cannot give them the world, but we know, because you used it in the campaign, everybody understood what that statement meant. Okay? It wasn't that the economy was going to get better by itself. It meant that everybody was going to share in the economy. We weren't going to have political victimization. We are not going to do that. That's what the message was. Okay? So you came in the parliament and you used that. So I've said enough on that. Just to say too, though, before I look at specific measures, which I think may not be high, well, they may be high priority, but they're ones that I want to deal with up front before I go to the other measures. I would say that the tone of the budget, taking that out of the equation, was a more hopeful one. And I think that Minister Tanku was more measured in his criticism of the former government, because when he did his mid-year review, my God, I mean, he just went overboard. And I suspect people said to him, listen, tone it down. You're doing a national budget, a mid-year review. Don't use that time to vent your spleen. And, you know, it came across very much like that. This time around, yes, he said it, and he had to say it. I have a right to say what he meant. But I don't think he went into the kind of vitriol and anger that he showed when he did the mid-year review. That's my take on it. And so I think the message was one more of hope. Better days are coming. I think that was the intention. And as opposed to the PNM government, the former administration saying, tighten your belt, things hard. You think things hard. And yet doing the opposite of that when it came to your own pension and so on. So I think that was the overall intent, and I think that was more or less the message as you listened on that day. However, I'll just make the point first, and then I want to go to specific measures that I think are of concern anyhow. Yes, the budget says that he predicated the budget prices on oil and gas. Where does he get those numbers from? Where do you get those numbers from? I don't think they're realistic, you know, at all. I mean, it wasn't realistic when Colin Imbert, the former minister, made the presentation last year. You've gone beyond him. He went to 359, and you've gone to 425 for natural gas. And similarly for oil, you've gone from 7325 to 7780. Now, I know it's not just, as your PRO said, you know, it's not just one, it's not Brent and WTI. They look at a basket of oil prices, and then there's spot and there's future and all a la-di-da. But I will tell you something. I will be very surprised, but I guess, you know, the oil and gas is volatile. I'd be very surprised if at this stage that was a reasonable prediction, estimate to make for oil and gas prices, and I suspect.
No, it's just the basket of prices and the projection, you could say, all right, it's not necessarily going to follow the volatility. But what you're saying is $4.25, where have we seen that? How is that realistic? What is the indicator, right? Because this is supposed to be the average, not the shooting for the moon projection based on what I believe Minister Tanku said.
Yeah, look at global oil prices as you know, in any event, I suspect two reasons would be that one, that you want to have a higher revenue take to justify expenditure, so your fiscal deficit will look lower at this point in time. It's a new government, so you expect to have a 3.8 billion fiscal deficit, 2.5% of the GDP, which is the gross goods and services produced in the country during the fiscal year. So that is one reason. So you want to justify your expenditure. On the other hand, you probably may not want to go deposit any money. You will go into the HSF, and you know, you can't expect with a debt position that we have that may not occur, because the last thing I saw from central bank is that the debt to GDP, how much debt we carry in per dollar, is 85% of GDP. So it's effectively, of every dollar, 85% represents debt. And yes, big countries like United States and developing countries, Japan, them have 100 and something, way above that. But they can carry it. They can carry it because guess what? The economy is growing. Ours not growing. You see, so it's not, when you are carrying debt, just think you're running a business. If you carry too much debt in your business and you go to the bank to take a loan, they're going to look at what the projection is going forward. And right now, for 2026, you can't expect there to be a very good growth in the economy. So I thought that was, those are the two reasons I put forward. Now, having said so, also the oil and non-oil, I would really like the minister, whoever is presenting on Friday, to tell us what the non-oil revenue is, and what is the oil. Is the oil including natural gas? Because when you look up oil, it distinguishes natural gas from oil, and does it include the energy downstream industries, methanol, urea, ammonia? Does that include? I just want to know what you mean when you say oil revenue, because the oil revenue is given, when you look at the amount, it's 11 billion, I think, and the non-oil revenue is substantially more.
I'll double check this, but I do believe, in fact, I think I could get it here. Usually it would be energy and non-energy revenue. So I just want to...
That would be non-oil?
No, actually no. So the previous administration also did oil and non-oil.
Yeah, but they do that. Yeah, so the only thing I want clarity on.
Is it what by oil means the whole energy petrochemical
right, that's one
sector?
thing. I want to know what you mean by the oil revenue, because it can't be the crude oil. Because crude oil is 57, 60,000 barrels per day. That's nothing, and it's just crude oil, you're not refining it. So I just want to know what you mean when you say oil revenues. I want clarification. Nature abhors a vacuum, and that's what Sean is saying.
I don't know if you know this, because it should be year to year the same, right? The petrochemical sector, is that under non-oil or oil? Right? It probably is under non-oil, I think, and
yes,
it'll be lumped in with the manufacturing.
No, it's not. I know the answer, but it just escapes me right now. But in any event, yes, that's a good question, and I think you're right about that. The energy products.
Any manufacturing sector.
Yes, you're right, because it wasn't always, but then a decision was made to include the downstream industry, the ammonia, methanol, and so on, as a part of the manufacturing sector. So in any event, we need to know what you mean by oil revenue. And then when it comes to non-oil revenue, no, I'm asking her specifically, yes, I'm asking it, I know I was a minister, but I want you to tell the national community. Non-oil revenue, as the definition would say, would include things like sale of land. I want to know which land was sold or will be sold, buildings that are rented, buildings that are sold, anything of that nature to the private sector would come under non-oil. But you know what else comes under non-oil? And this comes from the Ministry of Finance committee that gave the actual revenue take for the last year, not the estimate, but the actual. And you know what's included in revenue? They say oil tax, non-oil tax, and they also include financing. So all those bonds and treasury, and all those bonds and the borrowing is going to have to do, except from the HSF, you're not borrowing, you're just withdrawing. All those bonds and all those borrowing you're going to do on the local market and on the external market, those are counted as revenue. Why? Because it is debt, but it is not expenditure. You're not spending money, you are gaining money, but you have to pay back. So when you're doing a debt profile, that will be counted there. But when you're dealing with revenue, the financing also comes under non-oil. And people need to know where this revenue, because people keep asking, where is the money coming from? So I think the national community now has to know, when you say oil revenue, what are you talking about? When you talk about non-oil revenue, where's the source of that non-oil revenue? So that's my beginning on that. What I want to turn to immediately is the PSA 10% increase for the period of 2014 to 2016 and 2017 to 2019, 2-3-year periods. And why I want to deal with that right away is today's headlines in one of the newspapers said, very strong language, they are liars. PSA slams opposition over wage offer claims, and that is Felicia Thomas, who is the president of the PSA. So let me just put this on the table. When we're talking about the 10%, the 10% is clearly to cover two collective agreement periods, the 2014 to 2016 and the 2017 to 2019. And what we need clarification on this, because the Colin Imbert, on a video which I saw, he said that she is misrepresenting, that is the new PSA president, which is Ms. Thomas, that the government, that is their government, the PNM government, was not prepared to offer them something very similar. And he said that what they had offered her, and Minister Manning reported that, and he said that what they had offered her, and offered the PSA through her, was 4% for the first period and then 5% for the 2017-2019 period, which PSA president is disputing. The thing about her disputing it, I noted that what she relied on to say that it was not true was documents dating back to 2022. Now, I gather that this, if it is in fact correct and true, and now it is up to the ball is now in Colin Imbert's court, to be able to show evidence that what he's saying is accurate. Because all the documents I think that she presented dated back to 2022. And under that 2022 arrangement, now you understand why the PSA was so angry with the government. The offer was for 4%, not only for up to 2019, but going up to 2023 for a 10-year period. That is what the offer was. And some of the unions took it, and Leroy Batiste, when he was, the Express newspaper had said, sorry, I don't need to call the papers, but he said, yes, he agreed 4% for 10 years is maybe, 12% for 2 collective agreement periods may be unfair. But given that the special tribunal of the Industrial Relations Court, that special tribunal, had made a decision that the 4% would cover not just those 2 periods, but actually cover a period which had not been negotiated as yet, which would include the 2020 to 2023 period. That was what the decision of the special tribunal was. So in 2023, he said, take the, we don't want to take it, but take the 4% for the 10 years because, for the 6 years, because if we don't do that, things could be worse when we come up to the current period and they give us nothing. And he's used that to justify the firemen and the teachers taking the 4%. But you see, look at what happened. When he was talking that talk, I think it was a change of presidents, and they took the matter to the High Court for judicial review of the decision of the special tribunal. And let me tell you, then they went and they won. They won. This is before elections. So it is very well possible that when they lost to the High Court, on very good grounds, by the way, that they lost to the High Court, which was before the elections, that it's very possible that this Colin Imbert minister went to Felicia Thomas and said to her, let's renegotiate. Let's go 4% for the first 2014 to 2016 and 5% for the 2017 to 2019. Because the High Court made the decision that the Special Tribunal had no authority to give a settlement for a period which had not yet been negotiated. And the Court of Appeal in July of this year confirmed that, this is what they said, pulling it up from PSA, they said that the 10-year Special Tribunal's decision to impose a 10-year award covering 2014 to 2023, it was appealed, the High Court ruling. They appealed it, the PSA, not the PSA, the Chief Personal Officer, because they won. We have won again. They said the Court of Appeal stated there is no clear intention by Parliament to give the Special Tribunal an unfettered free hand to unilaterally case a dispute which does not exist. The period of 2020 had not been negotiated. It's only those 2 periods. It sits in its seat almost as an arbiter, not to go on a frolic of its own. The resounding ruling in which the CPO was to pay the PSA's legal costs affirmed that the PSA was right to reject the tribunal's decision to impose a 10-year award and the previous government's unjust proposal of 4% and non-consolidation of the portfolio. So all of what I have to say on that is, you see the obfuscation, you see not being upfront, both of you, both the PSA and Imbert, both of you not being upfront, okay, because something not right. Why Felicia Thomas is only relying on 2022 documents when she must know both the High Court, Court of Appeal, and the High Court before elections had already said that what the Special Tribunal did, they could not award a period more than for up to 2014, up to 2019. They could not award it for 10 years. Okay, they could not. And they won. And not only that, the elections with the PSA supporting UNC, and remember, no one knew exactly what the outcome would have been. So I believe that Felicia Thomas is trying to save face by saying that, that's what I think now. If I am wrong, Ms. Thomas, don't be mad with me. Say everything, this full disclosure. You are leaving me to believe that the former government did come to you before the elections and did put that offer on the table. One, because they knew that based on the High Court decision, which they felt that would be confirmed by the Court of Appeal, that the 10-year period was not a go. And so you came now, and knowing that the PSA was supporting the UNC, you then came to them and gave an offer of 4%, 5%. I believe it would have happened. And because you had put yourself out and supported the PSA so, so aggressively, you were going to lose face, because then would your PSA think, say, but why did you? You mean your PSA, yes, the PSA. She is, I'm saying, the president of the PSA. Yeah. Do not get mad with me. If I am wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But I am saying that the reason why you are sorting the liars and waiving 2022 documents, right, and not the court hearing and all of that, is because you need to save face, because then some of the PSA who supported the UNC would have said, well, why be supported now? I don't want to support them anyhow. I don't believe that everybody wins when they win, so I don't want to support them. And you never disclosed to them that this was an offer that Colin Imbert made. Similarly, Colin Imbert is being less than forthright by giving the impression, oh, we went to give them 4+5. You were forced into doing it for two reasons: the Court of Appeal decision, the High Court decision, well, not the Court of Appeal, High Court decision, and the PSA supporting them. So God, both of you, put the facts on it. Don't give us half-truths and innuendos. I want to know from both of you how that 4+5 came from the PNM for the 2014 to 2019 period, and how the president of the PSA is saying that is not true, but does not disclose any documents further than 2022. So that's what I have to say on that. And I was really, I was taken aback. I was irate actually, because I said, you know what they, of course, is the people of Trinidad and Tobago paying your taxes, paying taxes to pay your salary. At least tell us the full truth. We want to know. And same thing goes for Colin Imbert.
I think that seems to be a lot of times what people might not understand is the issue is, if we don't have the full truth now, are you comfortable with having questions and gaps, right? Because at the end of the day, there are times when it bears out. What is missing is something important that we would get mad about, rightfully so. And that's why they don't reveal it.
And that's not
Not
right.
all the case, but far too, right, that's not right. Far too often, too many things, there's a lot of gaps. And in the budget, look, you have now various sectors in the business community. It's not just that they're upset, it's more, well, we're not entirely sure what this means, right? You're replacing VAT. What does that mean? We don't really have even a starting...
They didn't say they're replacing VAT. They are including some items to be VAT excluded, which the PNM government included in the VAT when they were in power. They say they're going to add more some that were taken out of the VAT, out of being excluded from paying VAT. They're going to put them back. So it's not that they're going to get rid of VAT. I didn't understand that. I thought they were saying, well, things like rice or
there's a new sales tax.
Okay, but that's...
Right, but the problem was this sales tax to replace VAT, revise and replace the VAT system.
What's the difference?
Well, not just that. It's not just what's the difference. We don't know because we didn't really get the difference. That's the problem, right? This is a future plan that is seemingly... we don't even know when they're going to start to look seriously at how the revision might be, right? Or what the process of making the change would be. But he pointed out, so now what does it do? It leaves a little bit, because it's not going to be dropped on us right this second, of uncertainty. And I don't know if that's something that investors and the business community likes, saying, oh, we're not entirely sure how, the economics of certain things are going to work out 2-3 years in the future. We're just going to get a change.
Okay, so, right, I see that Sean is very concerned about our business community. So I would just...
No, but then also for common citizens, I'm sure there's going to be things or questions that you have,
and that's
or
what
things that you don't
address.
understand. Right.
Maybe because I have that, penchant or the direction. Anyway, so I dealt with the PSA, and let's say what the real position really is. The other one was CPEP. I've talked about it before. I'm not going to go back and rehearse all the reasons why I said that CPEP was politically motivated. The East-West corridor conversation, what both Khadija Amin and the Minister of Public Utilities have said, talking about PNM, all the things that I have said. But what is really worrying is I did notice that when in 2011, they were talking about URP, and Minister Moodilal was then Minister of Rural Development, and he just said, well, we just want to do some geographical relocation. And there was a statement by this new government that there are too many of the CPEP and so on the East-West corridor. You take what they mean by that. So today, I saw in the papers, PNM corporations see funding cuts while allocation UNC areas rise. Right? You understand what everybody wins means then. End of the CPEP and URP. Understand what that means then. Heartless and unkind. And up to now, they have not come forward telling you we put aside money for unemployment. You cause them to be unemployed. And by the way, I keep saying 11,500 when you add the forestry workers, etc. I'm not going to even use Faris Alwari's figure, because some of the persons were people who were on, they were like interns with HCC, so I'll leave them out. It's about 15,000, 16,000 people you put on the bread line, the people who could least afford to be on the bread line. And you saying everybody wins? How they win? And what's your plan? Telling me you have money in some employment fund. Gosh, how? And I bet you, but I don't say bet you, but I have a feeling you're going to rationalize. You know what rationalize is? That's code word to say you're going to have much less CPEP workers and much less, and if you have them, they're going to be concentrated outside of the East-West corridor. That's what I think, when everybody wins. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling, right? And then if I had any question about it, then I read in today's Guardian, they're cutting funding from regional corporations, P&M corporations, and adding to the UNC corporation. That's everybody winning? That is following through with what people, that is why I think it is right. Stuart Young, who may not be my favorite, who I may not be his favorite person, yes, he has grounds to say he's politically motivated. He has quotation from both ministers, bringing you talk about P&M. And when I read this story today, it ended with somebody, no, that's not a minister, but it just reflects the thinking of the constituents from that area. And they want to please them. You better believe that. This is what they said. I'm quoting it. At the end of the article, a source from UNC, however, said, see how it feels? We were out in the wilderness for 2 decades with P&M, giving us little and nothing. We make do. P&M should get up and work. Try that now. You understand? Everybody winning. Who do you think we are? Please, people, wake up. Do not let them take you for a fool. You are not a fool. Do not let them take you for a fool. It's not. That's why you have to say it over and over, maybe to convince himself what you're saying was true. And that is my first game. So you know a lot, and they're right. The BNM was right. They're not no angels, but they're right. It's a set of give and take in that budget. Starting with the energy prices. Starting with the energy prices. How are you contradicting yourself like that? You are now saying you're going to make all this revenue with all of these projects coming on, and then at page 33 or 32 you say, you talked about a downturn in real economic activity due to declines in energy prices, right? So you know there's a decline, yet you're talking about all the wonderful things you're going to do this year, and not only fiscally. And you know what is wrong about that? You are taking praise for something you did not do. Come on. We already said it's 6.5 months. You were able to bring down crime with a SOE, give you that. Concerns about the 6-day killing by the police and buffing, to use or rebuffing the PSA, telling him he has a job to do as a COP. But you know what? That's intimidatory. That is to silence him, and that's his job. So that wasn't a good look. But having said so, then you come now to the energy, which you say is the backbone of our economy. So when you say that, the Ginger project, you have no call on that. It was not done under you. It's one of the largest global gas projects for, I think it's Shell or BP, one, I think it's BP. You had no call on that. This coming to gas in 2027, not this fiscal year. You had no call on SIP. The SIP, the economy grew a little bit at the end of 2024 because, and going into 2025, because the SIP had come on stream. Mento had come on stream in 2020. You had no say in that. You contributed nothing to that, right? So stop taking praise for something you did not do. You did not have anything to do with the solar farm, talking about the Brecon solar farm. I mean, oh my gosh, they started construction in, I think it's 2023, July 2023, and it was scheduled to end in July 2025. What it has to do with you? You had nothing to do with it, right? Even the Dragon Field, you cannot take a lot of praise for that, because it is a fact that the Stuart Young and predecessors to that in the PNM were able to get the 30-year lease from Venezuela. You had nothing to do with that. Okay, so don't take praise for things that you have no right to take praise for. And a lot of these gas coming is not in 2026, it is in 2027, which is not, and by the way, even with the things that you're taking praise for, which is Dragon Field, which I said already, it was an accomplishment for the Prime Minister, given Trump's hostility and active hostility to Venezuela. I heard only today I saw something, again, another boat blown up. But, so I give you that. But my goodness gracious me, it's 6 months, let's see what happens, right? Then the ExxonMobil, which is what ExxonMobil is one of the worst global players in oil and natural gas. That one they had in Alaska,
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
worst.
Yeah, well, very famous.
Famous,
And even as a
infamous.
child, that's how famous it was.
Not famous, infamous.
Infamous.
Yes. And they had several of those, Zayn, Zayn, Zayn is my godson. And, and I'm talking to him and said, Zayn, sorry.
I'll take this opportunity to hit the pause button because we have to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue conversations and open the phone lines. And we did get a comment that poses a very interesting question, although one might say it's something that we've probably gotten sentiments of this asked to the country before. We'll see if we could find a different answer, maybe. But more after this.
The season of lights is bright and tasty with Royal Castle's delightful veggie burger made with a healthy and nutritious patty. It's great on its own or in a combo with one side and a 16-ounce drink. So whether it's lunch, dinner or a snack, Royal Castle's veggie burger fits right in with your fasting and festivities. Happy Diwali from Royal Castle.
I had this accident last year, so it is more convenient for me now to move about with the car, so I can move about to the lanes properly. Here is the only place I can shop conveniently with my budget. Everything I get it here at a convenient price. I just get specials on butters and whatever, so it will be convenient for me. Their prices is very low compared to other supermarkets. It's a really nice place to shop.
In Hinduism, cow's milk is revered, and from the finest milk comes our ghee. When offered into the sacred fire, cow ghee carries our prayers to the deities, unlike processed vegetable ghee. From your devotion to your delicious dishes, you can trust Anchor Cow Brand Ghee. For all occasions, use the best ghee. Enjoy the best food and delicacies, and have the best Diwali with Anchor Cow Brand Ghee.
Lighting up for Diwali just got simple with the easy-to-use Anand brand wax diyas. They're scientifically engineered to last longer, burn brighter, and keep on lighting. Anand brand wax diyas do not require any prepping or filling and has less spillage and cleanup. These diyas are recommended for outdoor use and can withstand light wind and rain. Plus, they're eco-friendly. Redeem your use cases for cash back. So put some green innovation into your Diwali celebrations with Anand brand wax diyas.
It's Diwali time again. Come to Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan for all your Diwali essentials. Get your clay diyas, cotton wicks, floating wicks, beautifully decorated imported diyas. And now in stock, our long-lasting, easy-lighting wax diyas. Fasting? We have frozen vegetarian meals, exciting Indian spices and grocery items, decorated mithai boxes, prasad bags, freshly ground elaichi powder, and a paper sohari leaves. And don't forget our popular, tasty, mouth-watering mithai. We have simple Diwali Puja guides on CD with a Puja handout, and our helpful staff will assist you with all the required ingredients to perform your Diwali Puja. Get great deals on lantern decorations, electric diya string lights, and Happy Diwali decorations. Visit us at the corner of Watt Street, Kirep, or at St. Ives Street, Chaguanas, opposite the Charleville taxi stand, or call 663-6084. Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan. It's a family tradition, serving the nation and Dharma. Lakshmi Mata's divine blessings to all. For your convenience, both branches are open on Sundays until Diwali.
All right, we last left off kind of speaking about energy, pointing the fact that, listen, some of the things that we will benefit from in the short term, the groundwork was laid by the PNM. Some of the groundwork for the Dragon deal was laid by the PNM, whether we liked it or not. At the end of the day, the Dragon can't dance, and people were laughing at the previous administration for that. Now we want the Dragon to dance. We have to be fair. We can't just say everything they did was bad just because it was a Balize that did it. That's technically not how this works if good governance is the point and not partisan politics. More on that after, but Karen still has a couple of points she wants to get out this week.
Please, and one of them, so I'll leave the energy now. I think I've said enough on that. I've said enough about ExxonMobil before. So ExxonMobil is not a good deal, you know. Look at what they did to Ghana. I say no more on that. You just look it up. But this thing called the surcharge, it's rose by any other name is still the same. Actually, this rose is a little harsher. Let me just put it on the table. Because yes, it does not include persons, their actual where they live. It's not included in this landlord business surcharge. That's a new name. But many people who are going to face their retirement, people who are planning for their retirement and know that their income is going to be severely reduced, many people in their working years will invest maybe in stocks and shares, but also in an apartment, a townhouse, as a source of income for when they are retired. So to give the impression that it's only wealthy persons that are going to be affected, there are a lot of people who are going to be affected. So let us start with the difference, and it is significant, and it is not only not everybody wins, that's not even it, but it's really harsh if those who it applies to. Number one, they're now saying you have to pay a registration fee, whether you're a business or residential, of $2,500, a one-time registration fee. We never had to pay that. Two, the other thing too is it says that they say that if your annual income from rental is $20,000 or less, you will pay 2%. But how many people would that apply to? $20,000 less, about $1,500, $1,600 a month. I mean, that's a lot of places it doesn't apply to, I can say that. So anytime it crosses that 20,000 mark, you look at 3.5%. The Colin Imbert government, or Rowley government, sorry, I get it mixed up sometimes. The Rowley government said 2%, you're making it 3.5%. But the good thing, from the country's point of view, is that you have included commercial properties. You need to define what you mean by commercial, because a lot of people who live in their residence have a bar downstairs. A lot of people who live in upstairs have a business downstairs. So those people would be captured. But it is good that the commercial has been included. I think that was good, but it is harsh. It is harsh on a lot of people to take it from 2% to 3.5% and encourage us, and then we have to pay this registration number. But the thing about it too, and if I have to be fair on it, is that from the government's point of view and Board of Inland's point of view and the Ministry of Finance point of view, it is a good move. Why I'm saying that? Because instead of you sending out hundreds of people, which they did in my time too, so I'm not taking some responsibility, to go out and determine what the value of properties were, only residential. In this time around, it is you have to give them the data. You have to let them know. And it's the actual rent you're getting, not some figure that you pull out of the air, but an actual figure. So number one, a lot of people are going to have to disclose their ownership of how many apartments. They know who they own, a lot of them. And there's some people in this country that own a whole set of property down in Port of Spain. Some people in this country that own a whole set of apartments and commercial things. So some people in this country will be paying that 3.5% on each property. So not only are you getting a lot of revenue from that, but you're getting the data on them. A lot of times the tax evasion comes from you not knowing what they have. So now they have to release it. And if they don't give you the right figure, you can insist that they bring their lease or bring the proof of the amount that they're getting as thing. So it's the onus is on them. So there's no question of going to tribunal to say, well, you're taxing X, my neighbor, this amount, and you're taxing me, that's not fair. No, that's taken out of the equation. So no longer does valuation have to run around and find that out. You are the one to give them that information. That's a good thing. So there's no question about tribunal. You'll go to the tax appeal board, but there's no longer necessity for a special tribunal to look at those kinds of things, because you are the one providing the information to the Ministry of Finance. And the other thing too is one of the reasons for the TTRA, which of course it was abandoned, was to get one PIN, one personal identification number for each taxpayer. So what would happen now, it is a way really, I think, that must be one of the advantages of causing anyone who owns a lot of apartments, owns a lot of commercial buildings, and filing their income tax separately. Now, all that information is going to be collated into one, so they're going to have a picture of what you really own, and they're going to have a picture of what you're really getting as rent. So, from that point of view, I will give the government a high five for that, because that is really very effective way of doing what the property tax mechanism we had in place, a far more effective cost reduction approach, very effective. The only thing I would say again on it is the increase in prices, you know, the tax. And the last thing is, you know, it's kind of unfair if, and Sean told me, say if the taxes collected under the surcharge is to maintain the regional corporation or to maintain the council. Because what happens is that it's sort of unfair to say that just because I only have a house, but I invested in stocks and shares or invested in property. You know, you're not investing in an apartment like many people do, that you have to, in effect, supplement the work of the local government. So that's the takeaway that may not be so good.
The thing is, if you're limiting it to commercial and people who rent, residential renting, right? And it's going to be an unbalanced way to try to get local government services financed.
If that is what they're using it
used for. And they didn't say that. So again, it's something that we're left to speculate on.
But the last one I want to deal with NIS.
Yes,
and then I
go
will
ahead.
Stop there.
I'll just say this. If you're not careful, things like this property tax, being how limited it is a good way to kind of push people away from renting.
That's true.
Right? And the implications of that, we don't know what, and investing in property.
You're not going to invest anymore because you know, but I will say from a government point of view, if I were in government, I would say that is a very good way to be able to collect taxes from property using a different name, but it is a very more effective way of doing it. And
yes,
in a sense,
the means to calculate it is a lot more straightforward.
Yeah, not only
so that's
so
good.
many ways it is better.
Yes,
and many ways it is better because you can't complain that they're taxing me too much because they value my property too high. No, you are the one saying what you're getting. And listen, if you don't tell them the truth, they will tell you to bring in the lease. So you can't get it. This is, I mean, I have to give them a high five for that. Minister Tanku, I give you all a high five for that, even though I may be affected by your decision. Me. The last thing I'm going to look at is NIS, and then I'll have to stop because we have to, you know, wind up on this for today anyhow. Yes, I saw that the Minister Imbert was complaining. What is he complaining about? We know, even when I was in office, I mean, the actual report was already showing where this is where we're going. All the countries, right now what's going on in France, that's part of the huge, 45% of their debt in France is pensions. Pensions is a big problem. They had to increase their, against a lot of resistance to increase the retirement age from 62 to 64. So let us put it this way. I do believe that the contribution increase of 3% in 2026 and 3% in 2027, if I got it right, is reasonable. Yes, as former minister said, that's 45% increase, but 13% is not that, you know, I mean, the change from 30% to 3% plus 3%, it had to be done. Because according to the actuarial report, by 2023, we just would not have the money to sustain the NIS. So hard decisions have to be made. And also with the increasing the age by which you would qualify. Starting from January 2028, persons who after January 2028, they're doing it 1 year and 1 year each year until they reach 65, from 60 to 65. I mean, what do you expect? That's a reality. It's done reality all over the world, all over the world. People living longer and young people are not having as many children. There are less people entering the system. And the NIS pension has to come from somewhere. So I do agree with what they have done, and I don't think that the former minister, trying to put cold water on that, I don't think it was fair. And I do think that although I'm not happy about personally about the landlord business surcharge, I think that was as we would say, a boss move, honestly, except that it does affect a lot of people who have one little apartment and hoping to use that for their pension. And the last thing I would say, give kudos to the government. The pension, That was the Prime Minister did say it when she was campaigning. She said that is not right. You're paying taxes all your year. All during your working life, you're paying taxes. And you come in now, when my income is severely reduced, I want to tax that too. So I 100% agree with that. The $1 for every litre for super, well, I don't know how it's going to work out, so we'll see how that works out. But there's the thing. But I mean, the man in the street, everybody really win with that. That's for sure, except the gas station owners.
If it's going to be easier to get foreign use cars and super is cheaper, what most likely might, what I think will happen, let me put it that way, most likely might happen. What I think will happen is we might get a greater traffic problem with more cars on the road, right? Yeah, and I think if you really wanted to solve the transportation needs for the public, and I believe I said this late Monday night, what about the public transportation system? So that's where I will say, because they did have a little bit of things to say, I don't think we got a lot of details of it, but I will more than welcome this government doing anything. They mentioned the public transportation system and the road network. I very much hope they will invest heavily in those two areas.
Okay, Sean, I want to ask you something. If you're part of the traveling public, you think you would take these little more traffic than getting $1 over every liter of super you put in your car? I think there are a lot of people, a lot of people who are the lower end who are, when they're trying to make the dollars mean.
I understand that, but if you combine it with more foreign use cars, right, you could have still done the fuel cost reduction, but if you want to solve a traffic problem and a transportation inefficiency problem, more cars isn't going to solve that, right? And if people want to be able to move around independently, a public transportation system might actually be more effective at this point when we have traffic. It doesn't take much to cause traffic now.
Okay, Sean, just the thing with the engine, I'm finished.
Right.
Is that this is part of the whole thing about taking credit for what you didn't do. I mean, to come and say the current amount of, current numbers for natural gas is 2.6 billion cubic feet per day. And you say by 2027 it's going to raise to 3.2, as if you had anything to do with it. It's ginger. It's meant, yeah, ginger is a big part, and they've all said that's coming in 2027. The PNM said it. Don't take credit for something you are not to take credit for. Take credit for ExxonMobil, which I tell you that we have to look out for that deal.
Now, I want to go to the first comment that we have lined up, right? Because I think this is important. Sure, the PNM set that precedent the last 10 years. It backfired on them. Now they're in opposition. I'm not sure if this is with regards to the local government allocation situation being reduced, but I also spoke on it, Karen. And I'll just say this. It doesn't matter what the PNM did. What we want is a government who will be better than the PNM, not the same thing as the PNM. If I am correct in what I believe you're speaking about. But I think generally in most things you could apply that logic, that no matter what the PNM did, it doesn't give you license to replicate. It doesn't give you license for tit for tat. We want someone to be better. We hope that the Prime Minister, Kamapisa, will do better. We think that this budget, at least in some aspects, has the potential to be better, right? But then we don't want, after the fact, and this is what bothers me, it's not even necessarily about the fiscal measures and the various things in the budget statement. It is some of the justification after the fact where you have to say, well, the PNM did it, or the PNM did like this, or look what the PNM did, right? Forget about what the PNM did. They already voted out. Look at what the PNM did was for the election. Not to justify decisions in the budget, unless it has practical fiscal necessities of, well, we can't overspend here or we can't do this, and then we are analyzing past budgets in that respect to help inform the numbers, the accounting, the economics in the current situation. All right, that's different. But if you want to have a political argument, well, they did this, they did that, if it's practical, fine. But if it's just a blame game situation, that's not helpful, because arguably, why are we in a way using that as the standard upon which we measure future governments? Being, oh, well, once you're a little bit better than what we didn't want, we're happy? No, I want what's good. A little bit better could still be bad. Slightly bad and very bad is still both bad. One is a little bit better than the other. Let's go to the other comment, though, because this one is a bit more far-reaching. Good morning, Sean and Karen. I grew up in the late 50s, so I am approaching 70. My father was a laborer working for next to nothing salary. My mother raised 8 children. We all went to school, sometimes bare feet. Yet we all came out well with very little material substance. Why? Because my parents instilled the values of hard work and honesty. 2025, my family now has doctors, engineers, teachers, and other professionals contributing significantly to our nation in TNT. I am seeing a similar situation today with our nation's finances and the citizens. Black Stalin sang, "We can make it if we try." My question is, are we truly trying as a nation and the people? The answer to that is probably very layered, because I do feel we are, not just due to political reasons and party lines, I don't think we're unified as people. Everyone is, a lot of people are a little too caught up with their personal life. And I understand that. Listen, I get it. You might have kids to feed. Even if you're single with no children, you do still need to be responsible for yourself. You probably still have other family members or even friends that you might want to help out or be responsible for. But democracy comes with a certain expectation of some participation. And you want to be an informed participant, not an ignorant participant. So that just on the surface, are we truly trying as a nation and the people? I'm not sure. I think we kind of underestimate our own role too often. We don't put, it doesn't have to, you don't have to become a member of a party and give up your whole life to being a political operator, but just being a little bit better informed, being a bit more, putting a bit more effort in trying to understand the situation, a bit more discerning, and not necessarily just, well, I like what that person is selling because they're charismatic. Usually, yes, elections come down to charisma, I get that. But perhaps if we rely on that too often, you end up with some oopsies now. So I don't know if Karen, if you want to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, and I sound like I'm repeating myself so often, and it goes back to the clarion call of the minister in his budget speech. That was central. Nobody made the prime minister or then opposition leader decide that when we win, everybody wins. That was her decision. That was her decision. So you cannot make that your central plank, and that being persuasive in letting people think that you are going, this is a different Kamala Prasad processor, that you are going to see the things that we did not see in the previous iteration. You are going to see a government that is not going to be partisan. You're going to see a government that is not going to use tribal politics, because you are the one that said, when we win, everybody wins. And clearly, you, at least your minister, and I'm sure many of them, if not yourself, but I'm sure you agree to that, that was your intention, that we were to be seduced by those words and to believe that we were not going to see a continuum. So to tell me, you know, what you did, we did, okay, well, if you like it that way, continue. And I want to use one example to show the power of unity. And you may think it's a thing I want to mention just to show how unity can make so much a difference. I'm sure many of you must have heard about the Renaissance project in Ethiopia, where they built a hydroelectric power plant, which is huge, and is going to transform the lives of Ethiopians. Of course, there are problems with that because Egypt and Sudan, through which the Blue Nile will eventually end in Egypt, are more than upset and even threatening war, because they're saying that, of course, Ethiopia is going to take the lion's share of the water and things are going to change the whole thing. So that's the problem. But guess what happened? Because of that, because of the affair of alienating countries like Egypt and so on, many of the countries that were going to donate or give, not donate, but going to lend money or donate, pulled back. China was one of them. And suddenly the monies, the funds to complete the project was drying up. And so what seemed to be something that could have happened was not going to happen. But this is what happened. This is what happened. You have to understand that they said, let me just see, let me see, I'm going to read it. Because the Ethiopian people achieved a remarkable feat in September 2025 with the inauguration of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the largest hydroelectric project ever built in Africa. The project defied all odds for completion as multilateral donors withdrew funding for fear of causing conflicts with downstream countries on the Nile, Sudan, and Egypt. The latter even threatened war over the project, and yet the government, led by Nobel Prize laureate Abiy Ahmed, tenaciously persisted. This is what I want to see. The Ethiopians found domestic sources of funding from public sources when some of the initial proposed support from China did not materialize. Most admirably, Ethiopian citizens raised a staggering $460 million for the project, largely from crowdsourcing campaigns, bond sales, athletic events, and lottery draws from the diaspora spread out all over the world. The country's citizens, more than half of whom do not have access to grid electricity, remain optimistic. That's the power of unity. That is what you can achieve when you unite. So to continue that dialogue about it's our turn, it's your turn, our turn. Where do you think the country is going? Where do you think it's going? You know what's going to happen? Your efforts are going to be sabotaged. There are people inside the ministries who support the other side or who have become disenchanted with you already, and understandably so, I must say, that will not be that gung-ho about supporting your project. But when you have a whole country behind you, and Ethiopia is not one united country, it's not one, it's not, as you must know, there are many, many, many tribes, they fight with each other as many countries do. But what I'm saying, in spite of that, they put aside their differences and the ordinary Ethiopian, the power of the people. So when you continue this narrative of we turn, your turn, we turn, your turn, you knew who you're helping. A country divided cannot stand. It's not something in the Bible, I think. But in any event, Ethiopia is a real example of people uniting on a common purpose. So Trinidad and Tobago, stop that. And Prime Minister, and your ministers, and you know some of whom I am talking about, listen to me. You know in Trinidad we say you're toting feelings, but too many of them are doing that. And if they're feeling that way, they should not be in politics. They should not want to represent this country. Get out and say what you want to say, but do not use a powerful platform as being the government to advocate your own views, which are not one of unity. That's what I have to say about that.
Before I go to the next comment, I'd just like to point out one of the things Karen said, Ethiopia, there was crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a very powerful tool. It allows the public, the whole collective, to individually pay. And you're not saying everybody pay 1%. You're saying you pay what you want to pay. And when you give people the power to opt into something, you will get more buy-in and you will get more long-term support and loyalty to that project than if you say, well, everybody needs to do their fair share. 1% tax.
They didn't even have to do it. They did athletic things. They did all kinds of things because they all united against a common purpose. And why? And look at what they achieved.
But you give them the chance to opt in, to choose to participate, not compel them to participate.
Right. But the better message is, from what I took out is the power of unity. When you can see the power that you have, instead of fighting each other, uniting together. That is what the message is.
When you give the population the chance to all choose unity themselves, that is not a unity that will be fractured
where would that come? Where would that unity come from?
Now, we have another comment, and this actually just continues the conversation. Is distributing the country's wealth equally wrong? First of all, we don't have an explanation to say that it was equal. Right? We just know that change is made. It could be equal, it could be unequal.
CPAP and URP is equal.
I'm just talking about local government. I think that's where he was going, right?
Okay.
But so it could be, it couldn't be. We don't know. Optically, it does. You put yourself, that is to say, the government, put themselves in a position for people that want to interpret it negatively to be interpreted negatively. There's no way around that. They didn't come up front with an explanation. So everything they say now could appear to cynics as excuses. Let's continue the comment. 9+ years of PNM was not distributing the country's wealth equally. Again, I do think PNM local government bodies were also wishing they got more money. There's the difference. You know who couldn't speak out? The PNM local government people. They dared not speak out, right? Dared not. In fact, some of them were changed because there were complaints that they were making other people look bad. I'll say no more. To show balance, you should have an equally educated UNC supporter. Here's what that I take a little bit of an insult to on Karen's behalf and on my behalf. Karen is not a PNM supporter. Let's just get that. Let's try and make people understand for the 167,000th time. I am not any supporter, right? I do not like either party. I have no bias for either party. Karen spent a significant amount of time before the election criticizing the then PNM government. You know what changed? You know what changed and why she's criticizing the UNC? Because they won the election. The PNM is in opposition. They do not have any policy decisions to make. And I have criticized the PNM, and when Karen is ready, she has criticized the PNM for things that they say. But at the end of the day, they are not in government anymore. So they don't have policies to make. It's not an inbuilt budget. It's a Tanku budget. So of course, the people who are going to get the criticisms because they're the ones doing the work. So as the government, they're going to get the analysis, and when the analysis is good, Karen says it's good. She appreciates what they did for the pensioners, right? Not everything is bad, but there's a lot of questions, right? And even with the property tax, which Karen technically she doesn't like, but she acknowledged certain aspects of it was a positive change. Certain aspects of it was implemented well. So to say that she's a PNM supporter, that's what the statement implies. Now, do we need a UNC supporter? Here's the funny thing. First of all, for the post-budget show, we had a member of the UNC, right? Basically, not just a supporter. But here's the thing, and I don't know if you realize this, to actually get a PNM or UNC supporter to commit to coming at a regular appearance is very difficult because everybody is afraid of saying the wrong thing. And the easiest way to not say the wrong thing is to say nothing at all. And that's why, as time goes on, you know, depending on how things shake up, we might see the same pattern happen with the UNC that we saw with the PNM. The line ministers speak less, the prime minister might be forced to have to speak more. When Keith Rowley was first elected, and he didn't speak a lot, he eventually had to speak. And of course, to varying degrees of success, right? But it was in part because his ministers had not that much success over time when a lot of ministers put their foot in their mouth. So just to get someone to be willing to speak, that's authorized to speak or willing to put their opinions out there, it is not that easy. And I have tried, or have I tried over the years, right? So we have Piak on the line. Good morning, calling on there.
Hello, good day.
Morning, morning.
Morning.
Yes, I want to make a contribution.
Sure.
Now, in the budget, they said they increased the container processing fee from $525 to $1,050. That is 100%. Also, the custom declaration fee from $40 to $80. Now, what I'm seeing there is that every single thing coming into the country will have an increase in price, from clothing, medication, everything will be affected because they will have to pass on those costs to the consumer. And that is really scaring me because I am an asthmatic and I basically am buying medication all the time. And the medication, the prices are going to go up. Everything is going to go up. Every single thing, electronics, clothing, because we import everything. We don't manufacture any pharmaceuticals in this country. And a lot of people are living on medication. So what are they going to do now? And that is really scary. Another thing they mentioned, they talk about the VAT, removing VAT from the tomatoes and other products. They never had VAT on those products. The VAT is on processed foods. So that is nonsense. So concerning the container and the shipping costs and everything else, they are basically giving with one hand and taking away with the other hand. Because the prices of everything is going to go up. That's my contribution.
Thank you, caller. I just want to say, my issue is that part wasn't clear enough for me because sometimes I'm like, is it for everything? Given what you said, I reread it for I think maybe the fourth or fifth time. They stated 80% of the projected revenue increase is from alcohol and tobacco products, right? But you made a good point.
Then go to the next page too, because they talk about increasing the price of those things, and then they turn to the customs and processing fees.
Yes, yes.
So
and I think what the caller pointed out is he said 80% of the $1 billion expected revenue might come from alcohol and tobacco, but what about the other 20%? And that's where the questions are left. What about medications? What about clothing? What about everything else that we import? Rum, spirits, beers, and cigarettes, that takes immediate effect. We don't know about the rest. Even the industry, the local industries in that area is not entirely sure what this means. And that's part of my problem, right? not everything in the budget left us with a lot of questions, but especially something like this. Because to me, this was one of the few things where this is not a we're giving to you. This is we are taking from the system, but we need to understand when the minister says don't pass on the price, the cost increase to the consumers, that's not how it works. Especially if you do something that's going to affect the entire industry, you can't just expect the industry to be able to absorb it. And there will be niche cases of people who can't absorb whatever the price increases.
So with regard to what the caller said, yes, I mean, that's part of the problem with this budget. I guess the minister did say there'll be more clarity as the budget begins, really. The debate begins on Friday. I think it's this Friday, yes? But okay, so let me say on one side, okay, so let me be the devil's advocate.
Right, sure.
Be a devil's advocate. The minister did say that those increases had not occurred in the customs and processing fees for over 30 years. So that's the first thing. So I'm not saying it should have gone. And secondly, I suspect that when they meet with the chamber, etc., they're going to have to reduce the figures, and which will look as if the government is listening. You know, it's sort of like that's what I believe.
That they will adjust down.
They will adjust down, and he did say 30 years. The other thing about that is, when he talked about medication, there are two things I would say to that. The Ministry of Health has already said that they are reviewing the CDAP program to increase the number of medication available, looking at the pricing. And so that is something that maybe the ministry, that's your specific concern. And as I said on a program, CDAP medication is not bad. In America, 95% of their medication is generic. And that's what the CDAP offers, generic, because it goes through a lot of testing, which in the early days perhaps was not there. So maybe the pressure could be put on the Ministry of Health to increase its vigilance over the CDAP and increase the medication available. The other thing too that they really do need to deal with staying on that point and on your medication point, they need to deal with this monopoly that is occurring in this country. I did an article on that where it's not regulated. Not the retail, the price that these one entity more or less brings in all your medication, you know, nearly all your medication, and the prices are not regulated. So maybe the Fair Trading Commission and the Ministry of Trade need to deal with that issue to reduce the price of medication. CDAP needs to expand and include more generic drugs on it, and reduce the impact of this monopoly that we have in this country, where they control nearly every medication in this country. So that's my take on that. The other thing, maybe it may not be, let me just quickly say that, it may not be an attractive argument, but the reality is necessity is the mother of invention. So that one of the things we talk about the food import bill, perhaps when people realize that it's costing more, which is what happened to Venezuela. You know, why Venezuela got in trouble? Because the Bolivar remained high. The price, the thing remained high against the US dollar. So it didn't make sense for the farmers to produce or grow any goods because, I'm going to finish this now, goods because they were importing everything. It was cheaper. Now if you make it that it's more expensive to import, maybe that will act as an incentive for you to get into the agriculture in a serious way, as well in the other areas that you mentioned. That's my contribution.
I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree with that. We have Claxton B on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Mr. Claxton B. Morning, Mr. Claxton B.
Mute the TV. Mute the TV.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Sharon, Sean. You know, all how this government trying to get away from taxes. I can't understand in the name of God, like, no, I don't know who it is talking to them. Unless the bounty that they put out on Madura, like they plan to get our money, or they sell the country or something to get money, I don't know what it is they're trying. And the thing is that they wouldn't come out and tell the people the truth. Tell the people, well, hear what? This is where it is. We are in problems. We have problems not only in Trinidad, but throughout the world. You understand? The 10%, we can't afford it. You understand? Because all this is problems. But you see, they're so accustomed lying. They lie to the people so much, give them all kind of promises, and now they can't fulfill, and so they have to continue to lie. You understand? Because the revenue authority was one way in having everybody pay, and they would have been making, they'd have get back some money. But instead now you want to go conveniently. You're putting all the pressure on poor people, because when they put the taxes on the landlord, they're going and pay it on the poor people. You understand? Everything that you try to set up the bank and all going to put the pressure on the poor people. So it's the poor people you're looking up right through and bawling that this is a good budget. This is a whole pack of tomfoolery and foolishness. You understand? But I didn't even went university, I didn't even went to secondary school, and I could see that is total foolishness. You understand? But anyway, let me see how things go pan out. Thank you.
You know, Mr.
That last point actually was a pretty good point.
No, but he's really, he's a good example of persons who didn't have an opportunity, because yes, he says things in a rather emotive way and very colorful way, but he does make very good points. And if he said he didn't even have a secondary education, I would say to you that, it's a sad thing that you didn't get that opportunity.
I want to say though, I wouldn't necessarily agree with the say that they outright, like, yes,
yeah,
right? I will say that,
you don't agree with that.
They're not always upfront about things. That's all governments. But that's all governments, yes. Because listen, some of the things we're saying now, we said about the PNM multiple times.
Red and ready was not true.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. Yes, and I think he went further with the point than Karen and I did, and especially with regards to the rentals.
That's true.
The people who, because you can't put a law to stop the price, the cost increases from being pushed down.
Yes.
Right? Because then that law would basically have to say, well, you can't increase the price at all. And that's not going to work. That's not going to fly. Then we'll be one step to communism, right? And then good luck trying to centrally plan the economy if we can't even plan what government services we have right now. Hopefully this government might be doing a better job than the previous administration. But those things will trickle down. The bank things will trickle down. If there's any increase to alcohol and tobacco, that will not only trickle down, we know that whether we want to admit it or not culturally, a lot of people, that's what they partake in with their disposable income for their recreation, particularly low economic brackets. See, high economic brackets too, that's what they can afford, and now you're making it harder for them to afford. I do think there was a point in time when it might have been the PNM, where there was an increase with regards to alcohol taxes or something, and people complained about it.
I was there when we did that.
No, after.
You see, they always target alcohol and cigarettes. That is a low-hanging fruit for every government.
Right? And I don't have an issue with it, but I do feel, though, being upfront about it, but the rental thing, the bank thing, yes, the bank fees, they'll probably spread out the fees, and they'll try to do it in a way that it won't impact people as much as possible, but the lower brackets will feel it, because they'll feel minuscule changes. We have a couple comments to get through, so let's go. Just put up, either one is fine. Greater emissions, greater traffic and greater emissions. Those cars are designed to use premium fuel. If it's about the used car situation, I actually do find that a lot of modern cars that you would think needs premium fuel doesn't, right? It depends. And then I'm not speaking about hybrids or EVs. So I don't want to speculate more on what you were getting at, so I'll just leave that there. Let's go to the next comment.
Same thing.
It's Christmasless, not Christmasless. Moved on with his life. He makes so much videos in Canada. Drug crime. He exposed it all. Yes, that's the point. These YouTubers, they didn't speak about rainbows and sunshines in their country and then come to Trinidad and say, look how bad it is here. No, they do that in their own countries. They do that in other countries, every country. If that's what they do, if their whole thing is to look and see, what is the crime like in this place? How bad is it? How do people live? How do people live in the lower income areas that might be affected by crime? Whether it is in Latin America, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, they'll do it. That's why they are confident wherever they go, because they're accustomed to going in these places and they understand how these things work. And the YouTubers that came down here didn't treat us any differently than they would treat anywhere else. And as this comment pointed out, they will call out their own countries for the most part, right? A lot of YouTubers, they cannot afford to have their integrity questioned, because if that happens, remember, we opt into watching these videos. So they will lose a lot of their viewers and a lot of their income if they sell out to any sort of corporate or political agenda. Last caller, because we're out of time, Dabity on the line. Good morning, caller, you're on here.
Yeah, morning.
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 Yeah, I just want to ask a question simply.
Go ahead.
To Mr. Sheriff. Well, could you say fiancé, because I know you all from the sporting sector, football, right? But Mr. Sheriff, you said something concerning the taxes of persons having houses and apartments, right? A 3% tax, they suppose subsidy, right? Holistically, if it could be implemented, the government printry as a volume, right? As with statistics of payments, statistics of payments and other proceedings.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, but I don't think it's, you know, with the annual rental value, if I understand, if you don't mind me butting in, but I think what you're suggesting is like when we had the annual rental value approach, that you wanted the government to give you an idea of what the taxes would be, because one thing I did not mention, which even makes this new system harsher, under the PNM, when they assess what your rental income was for the year, they took away 10%, which they call it voids, because they said sometime in the year you probably wouldn't be renting. So you actually had to pay, you paid for less 10% than the actual rental value that the valuation division said you'd have to pay. So to answer your question, they are not asking you to look at what valuation says your property should be valued at. They are saying that if you are renting a place, not where you're living, unless where you're living you're also renting out part of it, whether it's residential or commercial, what they're saying is that you will know what you're renting your place for. So if you are renting it for $5,000, you have to multiply that $5,000 by 12 months, which will give you $60,000, right? And there's no reduction, no 10%, nothing. And it's not a figure they pulled out and created. It's your actual revenue. So if it's $60,000, all you're doing is saying 3.5%, which is more than the PNM. PNM was 2%. They're going at 3.5%. So all you have to work out, I don't think it's that hard. 60, if it is 5 to as 60, 60,000, 1% is 600. 600 by 3 is 1,800. Am I right? I think I might be right. I'm not sure.
600 by 3 is 1,800.
1,800, any half percent. But so you can work it out. You don't need anything from the printry to do that, because they made it easy. They've taken all the maths out of it. They've taken out all the trying to figure out if you have 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, where your place is. No, they're not asking you any of that. What are you renting your place for? That is the figure they're going to use. And if you do not tell them what it is, they can easily ask you to bring in your lease agreement or the receipts from your thing. And if they're going to get, if your tenant is going to get into, cahoots with you to misrepresent, they're putting themselves in trouble. So I don't suggest anybody does that. So I think I tried to explain is it's not anything to do with the printry. It's you simply have to do that multiplication. And 3.5%, that is what you have to pay.
Now, caller, I'm sorry, but we're more or less out of time. So as much as there's probably more to this topic that could be explored, and probably it would be explored. I would imagine this is going to be political. We don't have any more time to do so, but thank you for calling.
Yeah.
I want to thank all the callers for calling in, and as well as all of the comments. Hopefully we got through with all the comments as well. Let me just double check. And of course, I want to thank Karen for joining me once again. As Karen herself pointed out, the expectation is as the debate goes on and more information is revealed, listen, if there's things that maybe we got wrong because we didn't have the information, we'll correct that once we get the information, and we'll continue the conversation as we get more information coming off from the debates from the various ministers, from the various ministries, and so on. And listen, both Karen and I'll speak for Karen, our fingers are crossed, we want everything to be as positive as it can be.
True.
But we're not going to say it's positive if it's not. So,
or if we're led to believe it's not.
Right, if we're led to believe because they don't actually want to tell us what it is or it isn't.
But they haven't told us.
They haven't told us yet. So to some extent, there's other things that we haven't spoken on. We didn't speak on it. We only spoke about what we saw so far. But with that said, stay safe. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. It's nice to be nice. And now I understand, even the comments from the budget presentation, it was a back and forth between the supporters of both sides. Why should we limit ourselves to that? Is that who we want to be? Not Trimbagonians, but members of the PNM and members of the UNC. Which one is more important to identify ourselves with? I'll leave you with that question as a continuance or as a follow-up to one of the comments. So we will see each other. Maybe we will find the answer soon. But until tomorrow, bye-bye.
WESN.